Her own attorney once called her the most hated woman in America.
Jesus Christ knows that no one was murdered.
Doomsday Mom Lori Vallow Daybell.
Anything that comes out of her mouth is a lie.
Known in infamy.
Tell us where the kids are.
Did you do something to your children?
For doing the unspeakable.
Investigators recovered 2 sets of human remains in Chad Daybell's backyard, and tonight, family members are confirming to 12 News the remains belong to J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan.
First convicted in Idaho for murdering her children Tylee and J.J.
It's destroyed people.
And for her role in the death of Tammy Daybell, her current husband, Chad Daybell's first wife.
We have to live with the fact that we're not going to have the people we love in our lives anymore.
Now she's convicted in Arizona.
Guilty.
For conspiring to kill her former husband, Charles Vallow.
Lost her mind.
And conspiring to kill her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux.
We got you.
Dark religious beliefs at the core of these crimes.
You justified all of this by going down a bizarre religious rabbit hole, and clearly you are still down there.
With each trial,
None of us believed her cock and bull story.
the web of people impacted by these crimes only amplifies.
These cases are hard.
That's insane.
And Vallow Daybell refuses to accept responsibility
We will both be exonerated in the future.
or her fate.
She'll be rotting in prison where she deserves to be.
Welcome to a 12 News I-Team special report, Convicting Lori Vallow Daybell.
A tragic and twisted case spanning 6 years and multiple states, fueled by dark religious beliefs, leaving a trail of dead spouses, murdered children, and families stricken with grief.
And as we approach Lori Vallow Daybell's last day in court here in Arizona, the I-Team's Erica Stapleton walks us through how we got here and the devastation along the way.
There's something harsh about winter. And in Idaho, as 2019 turned to 2020, a cold, dark truth was starting to emerge amid a web of lies.
Tonight, 2 Arizona kids are missing after vanishing without a trace.
This is a bizarre mystery.
December 2019, the first time police put out a public alert for these 2 children, 7-year-old J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan, siblings, both missing. Last seen months earlier in September 2019. The cold, dark truth. Their mother, Lori Vallow, was not the one to report them missing.
Just tell us where the kids are.
That's
I mean, it's so simple. Remedy is so simple. Just say where they are.
Kay and Larry Woodcock are J.J. Vallow's grandparents.
He's pure-hearted. What you get and what you see with JJ is what there is.
They were the first to wave a red flag after they hadn't seen JJ or his sister Tylee in months. JJ had special needs and they were worried.
I just love him so much. That love is great love. And we just want that back.
As they searched for JJ and Tylee, Kay and Larry started to untangle the web of lies. They learned that Lori moved with the kids in September 2019 from the East Valley of Arizona to Rexburg, Idaho, a rural area in the southeastern part of the state. Tylee is Lori's biological daughter from her 3rd marriage, while JJ was adopted by Lori and her 4th husband, Charles Vallow. Charles is JJ's great uncle and Kay Woodcock's brother.
And to just one day say, I no longer want you in my life, I don't love you. And by the way, I don't want JJ either. How does a person turn that fast? You know, marriages come and go. I understand that. But the love of your children should never go.
By the time the children went missing, Charles wasn't there to help find them.
I'm in police in an ambulance.
July 2019, Chandler, Arizona. An operator got a 911 call.
What's the emergency there? I got in a fight with my brother-in-law and I shot him in self-defense.
The man on the line, Lori's brother, Alex Cox, he explained he shot his sister's estranged husband.
Is he hurt or is he alive? Yeah, there's blood. He's not moving.
At the time of this shooting, Lori and Charles were living separately. Lori recently moved into this new home in Chandler, while Charles was in Texas. But he came back that July to see JJ and came to take his son to school when he was shot dead.
Chandler Police Department, anybody inside, make yourself known!
Lori and Alex told police that Charles was a threat, that Alex was defending Lori.
I'm just going to defend myself. So you put that bat down.
He was hitting him with the bat, like swinging the bat, back and forth.
But Charles's family believed that was just another lie.
Why does it have to be like this?
They thought that Lori planned Charles's death. She wanted him gone, out of the way, and she wanted the $1 million payout from his life insurance policy. Money Lori would never see. Charles switched his beneficiary to his sister Kay amid marital concerns with Lori, unbeknownst to her.
Once she learned I had the insurance money, that was it.
And by the way, the insurance money is exactly as Charles told Kay he wanted it to be.
To be managed, and that's what I've done. If you want the money, fine, I'll give it to you. I don't care. Just give us JJ. Give us Tylee.
In the months that followed, police continued to investigate the shooting.
I don't know Lori. At this point, I look in her eyes and I don't see anything.
So what changed?
What I know changed with her is she got involved with this group that Chad Daybell's in.
Chad Daybell. In 2018, Chad and Lori reportedly met at a conference for people interested in the end of times. Chad was a doomsday author, and the two apparently hit it off. Investigators learned that Lori began an intimate affair with Chad, revealing regular text messages and small group religious gatherings to discuss their extreme beliefs. Court records indicate that this group, led in part by Chad Daybell, believed that they were meant to gather and be part of the 144,000, anticipating the second coming of Jesus Christ. Chad Daybell lived with his wife and family in southeastern Idaho, right where Lori moved with her children in September 2019, just weeks after her husband Charles was shot dead. By November 2019, Chad would become Lori's fifth husband.
I don't understand her. I truly don't.
As the search ignited for her children, a new search started for Lori and her new husband, Chad. The couple disappeared from Idaho in late 2019 after police started asking questions. Eventually, they were tracked to Hawaii, but the sun was about to set on their sunny getaway.
Where are your kids? No comment? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
Chad and Lori were staying in a rental. On the application, they put no kids.
Listen, just tell people what's happening. There's people around the country praying for your children.
As Lori dodged questions from EastIdahoNews.com, a judge ordered her to produce her children. The court's imposed deadline came and went. And in February 2020...
Breaking tonight, Lori Vallow, whose 2 kids are still missing, has been arrested.
Lori was arrested. In early March 2020, she was extradited from Hawaii back to Rexburg, Idaho.
Just tell us where your kids are.
Where she was booked in the Madison County Jail.
You can see Lori Vallow in court. She's wearing an orange and white jumpsuit, even wearing makeup.
Everyone clamored in a packed courtroom, waiting to hear if she'd answer the simple question.
Tell us where the kids are.
Lori's adult son, Colby Ryan, pleading alongside Kay and Larry.
Just as her son, just try to plead with her. Ask her where Tylee and JJ are. This can't be that hard to answer.
Neither Lori nor her attorneys provided any answers.
Unfortunately, we can't comment further.
Chad Daybell was also in that packed courtroom, sitting in the public gallery. Back outside, our cameras were there as he dodged questions too.
Chad, where are the kids?
Chad drove off, but he wouldn't be off the hook. He not only had to answer for Lori's missing kids, but his own dead wife. Coming up, all the death and destruction connected to Chad and Lori Vallow Daybell starts to add up as investigators try to connect all the disturbing dots. When Lori Vallow moved to Idaho in September 2019, Chad Daybell, the man who would soon become her new husband, was married to someone else. But in October 2019,
Well, I'm Chad, the husband.
Chad Daybell called 911 to report his wife Tammy dead.
He's clearly dead. We don't know.
Sorry.
She was unresponsive in their bed at their home in Fremont County, Idaho, right by Rexburg. An investigation revealed that Chad had Tammy's body buried soon after she died, without any autopsy. At first, her death was ruled as natural.
It just feels like I'm in an alternate reality.
Dateline NBC talked with Tammy Daybell's sister, Samantha Gwilliam, and her husband Jason in 2021. Tammy was devoted to her family and community, a beloved librarian at a local school. Tammy's death was unexpected for the rest of her family, and Chad's behavior after was strange.
One warning bell after another, and you're like, no, there's something seriously wrong here.
They found it disturbing that Chad and Lori would marry less than a month after Tammy's sudden death, and the lies kept coming.
I was told that her name was Lori Ryan. I was told that she was an amazing person, that he couldn't wait to introduce me.
But then I found out her name really wasn't Lori Ryan, it was Lori Vallow. And her husband had died from a heart attack, but he was shot.
After police discovered that Lori's children were missing and started connecting dots, Tammy Daybell's body was exhumed, and her death was later ruled a homicide.
I had nobody telling me that they were looking into them. I had no idea. This was just me trying to figure out who is this woman that replaced my sister.
So now, there are 2 missing children, Tylee and JJ, 2 dead spouses, Charles Vallow and Tammy Daybell, and 2 newlyweds, Chad and Lori Vallow Daybell. But that honeymoon phase was cut short in February 2020, when Lori Vallow Daybell was arrested in Hawaii and extradited back to Idaho in early March for failing to produce her children.
Just tell us where your kids are.
Although there hadn't been any sightings of the kids in months, people were hoping for the best, including Lori's niece, Melanie Pulowski.
The things don't add up that are being thrown around. It's not who Lori is.
We spoke with her in May 2020, alongside her husband Ian, spaced out due to COVID concerns.
I don't have answers as to why she's continuing to do the things that she's doing, but I know the person that she is. I know that she loves her children with all her heart, and I know she'll do anything to protect them.
When we spoke, police were still investigating Charles Vallow's death in Arizona, and police in Idaho were investigating Tammy Daybell's suspicious death. Lori Vallow was in jail in Idaho as her children remained missing.
Chad and Lori get married quickly. They're in Hawaii. At this point, there's no sign of the kids with them or the kids around them. What do you make of her actions?
It's hard because you don't have those answers, and you wonder, and you have everybody in your ear telling you this happened and their fears and worries, and it comes down to just the people that I know and believe them to be, and that they would have no reason or motive to do anything but protect Tylee and JJ.
Why do you believe that Lori wouldn't harm them?
Lori there's no evidence of anything in her life that she's done other than protect Tylee and JJ. She would have no reason to harm her children.
And it turns out Melanie is caught up in this web too. On October 2nd, 2019, in Gilbert, Arizona, Melanie and her husband, Brandon Boudreau, were close to finalizing their divorce. He dropped off their kids that morning and was driving home from the gym when a bullet pierced his car window.
911, where's your emergency?
Someone just shot my window.
Narrowly missing his head.
They just drove off. I saw him drive off.
When police asked who could possibly want to kill him, he said his soon-to-be ex-wife's family members, Lori Vallow and Alex Cox.
The belief is that Lori's brother, Alex, was the trigger man.
Rich Robertson is a private investigator in Arizona, hired by Brandon Boudreau to look into the shooting.
And it's just horrifying to think that they had this belief that they could just kill people.
Melanie is the daughter of Lori and Alex's late sister, their niece.
I've never seen any real evidence that proves that Alex Cox shot at Brandon Boudreau.
And Melanie, according to court records, was part of Lori's religious group with Chad Daybell.
You know, the public takes those as fact, almost. If it's in a court document, it can't be a lie. And to see people run with that and form their opinions and see, you know, just things blow up in social media based on half of the story is extremely frustrating.
The bottom line is we don't know what Chad and Lori believe. They haven't come forward and said that. Everybody has already decided for them what they do and don't believe.
She also moved to Rexburg, Idaho, as did Alex Cox, around the same time as Lori. They were all living in the same apartment complex.
Did you ever wonder why Tylee and JJ were not with Lori?
Lori had told me that they were getting lots of threats and she had to do everything she could to keep Tylee and JJ safe. I didn't understand all of those threats, but at the same time, I knew Lori was, you know, those questions weren't answered for me. She was just told me that she was doing everything she could to protect JJ and Tylee.
Did you ask her specifically where they were?
Initially, I think this was before November, but she had said that when they moved down to Idaho that Tylee would go to school or you know, stay with friends and be in between, and she had a plan for JJ to put him in a good school and to have a nanny for him, and she was setting everything up for them, and I had no reason to believe that any harm had been done to the children.
What explanation did she give, though, for why they were not there?
If I would go over to her home and I didn't see them there early in November, sometimes Tylee was out with friends, which wasn't uncommon. She's a teenager that was not home a whole lot. She spent a lot of time with her friends. She's very social. And if I didn't see JJ, she would tell me he's either, he's with a friend or he's, has a nanny for him, and he required a lot of therapy and time with his special needs. And so I didn't have any reason to think that something was wrong, and I knew she was doing everything she could to kind of stay low and not tell people, where they were at.
Alex Cox died in December 2019 at his home in Gilbert, Arizona, as all the open investigations into Charles Vallow's death, Tammy Daybell's death, the shooting at Brandon Boudreaux, and Lori Vallow's missing children were ramping up. The medical examiner concluded he died of natural causes.
Do you think he had anything to do with the kids' disappearance?
I don't believe Alex had any involvement. I did have a lot of fears when my apartment got broken into and by the police knocking down my door, taking things and looking for JJ. And then Chad and Lori left to Hawaii shortly after. I didn't have anybody to answer those questions. My own father was bullying me, saying, sentencing is coming soon for you. You know about this shooting with Brandon, and these just aren't facts, and they're, it's not truth. And I did for a while just kind of live in fear and doubt that these things could be true. But when it comes down to it, there's no facts, there's no knowledge as to Alex harming the kids or Lori harming her kids. Everything points to that she's protecting them.
But Melanie was wrong.
Shocking new details in the twisted case involving 2 kids with Arizona ties.
Investigators recovered 2 sets of human remains in Chad Daybell's backyard, and tonight, family members are confirming to 12 News the remains belong to JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan.
We haven't been able to talk to Melanie after Tylee and JJ's bodies were found. Her attorney told us that she and Ian did not want to do another interview. The gruesome discovery answering the big question of where are the children? But it led to another. Why?
This has torn up so many people. It's destroyed people.
Coming up, Chad Daybell taken into custody.
Mr. Daybell, do you understand the allegations on both counts that have been brought against you?
I do.
And both he and Lori face murder charges.
Lost her mind. I don't know how else to say it.
It's chilling to hear Charles Vallow warn police about his then-wife, Lori Vallow.
So how does she pose a threat to your children?
I don't know what she's going to do with them. I don't know if she's going to flee with them, she's going to hurt them.
Especially knowing what we know now.
First up tonight, we're starting with breaking news coming out of Idaho.
Police have taken Chad Daybell into custody pending charges. In June 2020, a somber discovery.
Investigators have recovered what's believed to be human remains.
Investigators found 2 bodies buried in Chad Daybell's backyard. They were identified as the children of Lori Vallow Daybell. Chad's new wife, her kids, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow, were missing for months as their mother failed to cooperate with police. It was hard evidence that led investigators directly to Chad Daybell's backyard.
This has been a very trying thing for everybody involved.
Hope of finding the children alive obliterated.
And I just want you to know I came here for one reason. That's to see where JJ was.
JJ's grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock.
This has torn up so many people. It's destroyed people. It's torn up whole homes, and there's no need for this.
After this gruesome discovery, Chad Daybell was taken into custody.
Mr. Daybell, do you understand the allegations on both counts that have been brought against you?
I do.
Investigators believed that Chad, Lori, and her brother Alex plotted to kill Tylee and JJ using evidence like cell phone data and text messages to build their case. Tylee's remains were buried next to a pet cemetery. It's believed she was killed in early September 2019 after this family trip to Yellowstone National Park. Tylee smiling with her brother JJ and uncle Alex Cox, the last known photo of Tylee alive. Investigators believe JJ was killed days later. The last known photo of JJ showed him in red pajamas, the same red pajamas found with his remains.
Tell me what does it look like in heaven?
JJ's school in Arizona.
I'm sad, I'm heartbroken. I'm
confused.
Deeply mourning as Tylee's loved ones in Arizona grappled with the same harsh reality.
All of us were really confused and didn't know what was going on, and it was just really hard.
Almost a year after Chad's arrest, investigators brought more charges against him and Lori Vallow Daybell.
There is probable cause to believe the Daybells willfully and knowingly conspired to commit several crimes.
The couple charged with the murders of her children, conspiracy, among other charges. Chad Daybell was also charged with murder in the death of his first wife, Tammy. As for why, the motive, investigators believe the co-conspirators wanted money and that Lori and Chad wanted to be together, getting rid of everything and everyone in their way. Tylee, JJ, Charles, and Tammy. And investigators believe they used dark religious beliefs to justify their actions.
Lost her mind. I don't know how else to say it.
Before anyone died, in January 2019, Charles Vallow called Gilbert Police for help.
She thinks she's a resurrected being and a god, and remember the 144,000. Jesus is coming next year.
According to Charles, he was in the middle of a fight with his wife Lori, their marriage falling apart due to Lori's religious beliefs becoming more disturbing and more radical.
So what makes her a danger to herself and to others?
She threatened me, murder me, kill me.
She threatened to murder you?
Yes.
Charles explained that Lori thought he was possessed.
You're not Charles. I don't know who you are, what you did with Charles, but I can murder you now with my powers.
And that he worried about what she'd do to him and her children.
So how does she pose a threat to your children?
I don't know what she's going to do with them. I don't know if she's going to flee with them, she's going to hurt them.
Court records indicate that Lori's children were deemed zombies, a sign they could get killed.
I love her to death. This is killing me, officer.
Oh, I can understand.
Our 13th anniversary next month. We've been at a great marriage. All of a sudden, the last month, it just blew up.
Mm-hmm.
She just lost connection.
Charles wanted Lori to be evaluated.
I don't know what to do. I need help, and she needs help. She needs help.
And hours later, she was talking with police, giving her own version of events.
I told him not to come home and that his stuff would be gone and that his car would be gone and all this.
Lori brought her daughter Tylee and a family friend to talk with police. She accused Charles of taking her purse and said she took the kids to a hotel.
I just left with the kids because I didn't want them in all the drama.
She even joked about the mental health evaluation.
A gym where I could work out.
Yeah. You are going to get a padded room.
Records show Lori did have an evaluation and was released. About 6 months later, Charles was shot dead.
She needs help.
The 12 News I team also uncovered that shortly after this incident, in February 2019, an employee at JJ's school reported the Vallow family to the Arizona Department of Child Safety after Charles expressed concerns about Lori. Police records show the state agency also received another report about the family. During the I-Team's investigation in 2021, a spokesperson for DCS stated that the department did not open investigations into either allegation because there was no showing of abuse or neglect. With all that's happened,
all that she would have had to have done is answer our call.
Give it us JJ.
Give us JJ.
Let Tylee go on her way. She was, she could have gone to Colby. She could have come to us.
She could have come to us.
JJ's grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock. Kay is also Charles Vallow's sister.
Tylee could have got a wonderful education. She's so smart. And JJ, oh my God, just to have him.
That they didn't have to kill Charles. They didn't have to
to
start their murderous rampage and do what they did.
For
It was
nothing.
all greed. It was all greed.
It was
and
lust and greed.
It's hard for Kay and Larry to focus on the what-ifs, especially when there's always a what's next.
At some point, she's going to have to look at us because you make no mistake. I will be sitting as close as I can behind them. And I want both of them to know we're here. We're not giving up. We will never give up. They had a choice to make, and now they're going to have to suffer the consequences.
Chad and Lori Vallow Daybell's trials in Idaho were severed, meaning they'd each get their own murder trial. Lori's was delayed for several months. After she was found incompetent, she was taken to a state hospital in Idaho, where she was restored to competency. Her trial started in April 2023, and cameras were not allowed in the courtroom.
It was all about where are the kids, where are the kids, where are the kids? And now it's about justice.
Prosecutors laid out their case that Lori murdered her children and conspired to kill Tammy Daybell. They said she was fueled by money, power, and sex.
At this point, I'm not even asking why. Her why would never be justification.
Her defense called no witnesses and presented no evidence. The jury found her guilty on all counts.
Answer, guilty.
Including the murders of her daughter Tylee and son JJ.
Thank y'all, thank y'all, thank y'all.
In July 2023.
In less than 24 hours, Lori Vallow Daybell will learn her punishment inside of an Idaho courtroom.
People started lining up around 6 p.m. Sunday night. And there's good reason why people want to get inside, get that close-up look at Lori Vallow Daybell.
Lori spoke out for the first time at her sentencing.
I have had many communications with Jesus Christ, the Savior of this world, and our heavenly parents. I've had many angelic visitors have come and communicated with me and even manifested themselves to me. Because of these communications, I know for a fact that my children are happy and busy in the spirit world.
The bizarre religious diatribe did not land with the Idaho judge.
You justified all of this by going down a bizarre religious rabbit hole, and clearly you are still down there.
He sentenced her to 3 consecutive life sentences in prison. No possibility of parole.
This is enough. We're not talking about murdering people. We're not talking about people dying. We're not praying for people to die. That is sick. Let's please don't allow this to happen again. Please, let's do not allow this to happen again.
The fight wasn't over yet for Kay and Larry Woodcock. Chad Daybell's trial was next, and he faced the death penalty. Prosecutors in Idaho used the same playbook to try and convict Chad Daybell, saying the killings were fueled by money, power, and sex.
And this pursuit led to the deaths of his wife and Lori's 2 innocent children.
Chad Daybell's attorney set the stage to blame Lori and her brother, Alex Cox, who died before charges were filed.
We hear testimony about this beautiful, vivacious woman, very sexual person, and very manipulative. And she knows how to get what she wants.
The jury found Chad Daybell guilty of murdering Tylee, JJ, and Tammy.
Guilty on all counts. The jury reaching that verdict today in Chad Daybell's triple murder trial.
And now it'll be up to that same jury to decide if Chad Daybell could get the death penalty.
In June 2024,
the defendant is sentenced to death.
He was sentenced to death.
You never wish harm on anybody, regardless of what they've done to you. But at the end of the day, it's good that he can't hurt anybody else.
Justice has been carried out for everybody involved in this.
Chad Daybell is the 9th person on Idaho's death row, where he currently remains. But his wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, had to take a detour from her life sentence out of Idaho, back to Arizona, where she faced more murder conspiracy charges in the death of her husband, Charles Vallow, and the shooting attempt at her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux. Coming up, Lori Vallow Daybell gives her first jailhouse interview.
I'm here to tell you the truth, and you don't even want to hear it.
And gets the green light to represent herself in her Arizona trials. Lori Vallow Daybell certainly doesn't act like she's a convicted murderer.
I'm here to tell you the truth, and you don't even want to hear it.
Convicted of murdering her children, no less.
Of course I want to hear it.
I don't think you do.
But I want to hear the truth about all kinds of things.
So you want the truth want the truth that you already think you know. I'm the person it happened with. I'm the only one who knows the truth. And I'm trying to give it, but if you don't want to hear it, I will be happy to be quiet.
That became clear when she sat down with Dateline NBC in early 2025.
Chad was convicted and he's on death row now.
I understand that, yeah.
But
they have some fascinating
how could you
stories.
possibly think that Chad would be exonerated after what happened?
The same way I will be exonerated. We will both be exonerated in the future.
Because?
I have seen things in the future that Jesus showed me when I was in heaven. And we were not in jail. And we were not in prison. And they were still in the future from now.
She'd been at the Estrella jail in Phoenix, Arizona for a while now. In July 2023, she was sentenced to life in prison in Idaho for murdering her kids, Tylee and JJ, and for her role in the death of Tammy Daybell, her current husband's first wife.
Lori?
But in November 2023, she was extradited from Idaho to Arizona to face more charges.
She'll be isolated in a high security area, the Estrella jail.
taken into the custody of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office.
Well, this is a relatively moderate-sized female. What kind of a threat can she be? She is as much, if not more, of a threat to the harm of others as any other dangerous criminal we've had in our custody.
The charges: conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in the death of her former husband, Charles Vallow, and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in a shooting attempt at her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreau.
Are those cases going to be combined, or are they going to be done separately?
She'd face separate trials for the two charges. While awaiting trial, she had a rotation of public defenders, some who filed with the courts to check her competency. Vallow Daybell tried to fight this, and she demanded to represent herself.
Can you just tell me a little bit why you want to represent yourself?
Yes, Your Honor, for the past 5 years that I've been incarcerated, I have taken upon myself to study case law and criminal rules of procedure in the state of Idaho and Arizona, as well as federally. Prior to that, for the last 10 years, prior to my incarceration, I did study procedure in family law, and I have real trial experience.
A request that was ultimately granted.
Lori Vallow is fundamentally a narcissist. I'm not surprised at all that she is attempting to represent herself.
Rachel Smith was a prosecutor on Vallow Daybell's murder trial in Idaho.
Many pro se defendants act as if there's some grand conspiracy to get them, or at least that's the narrative they try to paint.
A lot of people questioned why Vallow Daybell was even being tried in Arizona, if she'd already been sentenced in Idaho to life in prison.
Every human has value. Charles Vallow deserves justice. Brandon Boudreau, when that trial comes, deserves justice. This is their day in court, and Maricopa County is absolutely doing the right thing by making sure justice is served for each of the victims that we're aware of that were harmed by Lori and Chad.
The first trial would be for the case out of Chandler, Arizona, where Lori Vallow Daybell was accused of conspiring with her brother to kill her former husband, Charles Vallow. Investigators believe Chad Daybell was also a co-conspirator, but he wasn't charged in this case. Alex Cox can't be charged because he died in December 2019.
What's the emergency there? I got in a fight with my brother-in-law and I shot him in self-defense.
Here's what happened. Back in July 2019, Alex Cox shot and killed Charles Vallow when he came to Lori's house to take their son JJ to school.
Yeah, there's blood. He's not moving.
At the time, Alex Cox claimed it was self-defense.
No, I never considered Charles to be violent or a threat before today.
But at trial, which started in April 2025.
As we go through this trial, you will see photos of Charles's injury, photos of the crime scene, and hear testimony that will prove that this was not self-defense.
The prosecutor laid out a different story, that Lori and Alex lured Charles to the home that morning so Alex could shoot him.
So she could be with Chad, and she could live off that life insurance policy.
That Alex waited more than 40 minutes to call for help. That Lori left the home after the shooting to take JJ to school, stopping along the way at Burger King and Walgreens to buy flip-flops. Her nonchalant attitude, police would later testify, stood out.
Her demeanor seemed odd given what was going on at the house that day.
The prosecutor called witnesses who told the jury how Charles was worried about Lori, her dark religious beliefs, and her affair with Chad Daybell. Charles was even working with Lori and Alex's other brother, Adam Cox, to try and have an intervention.
Lori had told people that Charles was no longer living, that some guy named Ned was inside of his body, that there was a zombie living inside of him. And Alex didn't respond to any of my text messages when I was supposed to be with him. And he was at that house that morning. Lori talking crazy about how she's a translated being. All these things all added up into that moment and that morning. Once I found out on Saturday that Charles was shot and killed, no doubt on my mind that they killed him.
Lori Vallow Daybell paying close attention at the defendant's table. The fact that she was representing herself, a spectacle that packed the courtroom nearly every day. She was allowed to wear suits during her trial with a stun belt underneath, rather than her orange jail clothes. Her opening statements, an appeal to jurors.
A family tragedy is not a crime. It's a tragedy.
Her remarks met with objections from the prosecutor.
The evidence will show you that I am the only person being charged with this crime.
I would object to the relevance of that.
Sustained.
a theme throughout the trial. As she represented herself, she got to cross-examine witnesses, including her own brother, Adam Cox.
Did you see with your eyes, or hear with your ears, or personally witness me conspire with my brother, Alex Cox, to murder my husband, Charles Vallow?
No.
Things also got tense when she cross-examined Kay Woodcock, Charles Vallow's sister and J.J. Vallow's grandmother.
Did you see or hear or personally witness me conspire with Alex Cox to kill my husband, Charles Vallow?
No, but I saw a ton of evidence that did.
Vallow Daybell did not call any of her own witnesses and did not take the stand herself.
This is an attempt by the state to try to retrofit a crime that doesn't exist. This event was not a crime. It was a tragedy.
After about 3 hours of deliberation over the course of 2 days, the jury found Lori Vallow Daybell guilty of conspiring to kill her former husband, Charles Vallow, a verdict Kay Woodcock and the rest of her family had been waiting to hear for years.
We got you, and you're not the smartest person in the room. You can just hide away, and everybody's going to forget about you. We'll be on our way through our life, and she'll be rotting in prison where she deserves to be.
As Kay Woodcock's family expressed relief over the jury's guilty verdict, the jurors themselves were in for a shock. Up next, Lori Vallow Daybell faces her third and final trial in less than 3 years.
No one wanted to defend her.
Plus, what did the jurors think of Lori Vallow Daybell representing herself? Inside the courtroom, as a jury found Lori Vallow Daybell guilty of conspiring to kill her former husband, Charles Vallow. Vallow Daybell herself seemed expressionless, unmoved by the finding of her guilt. But outside, it was a media frenzy.
Were any of you folks aware that this woman had already been
I had never been heard. I have never heard
three
of her.
homicides?
Yeah, no,
and
I've
the
never heard
jurors
of her
did not
before.
know that?
No, I did not.
For me, it was the text messages that did it, as far as evidence. And I feel like we uncovered some lies.
The jurors selected for this case weren't supposed to have any knowledge about Lori Vallow Daybell. They had no idea she was convicted in Idaho for killing her children and for her role in the death of Tammy Daybell. And throughout the trial, they were instructed not to research the case. But after reaching a verdict, they were released from their civic duty and could finally start to Google the woman they just convicted.
Was that difficult, going through this and not being able to be disconnected?
Yeah. It just felt like there was a lot of information that didn't make sense and that was missing.
It was kind of crazy to hear that this wasn't the only case that she's in.
This is juror number 8, Tosh Reed Tucker, who sat down with me after the trial.
It was insane. Once we reached deliberation, it came up like, why didn't she have Tylee? Why didn't she have her other kids, her family? She just didn't have anyone. So we were kind of questioning what happened there, but we couldn't ask anyone at the same time, because we're in deliberations.
What did you make of her not presenting a defense?
That she didn't have anyone on her side. No one wanted to defend her. I think in the beginning it was a little bit iffy, shaky, because she had to keep being corrected of how she was talking, and but throughout it, I think she did a pretty good job at representing herself.
Do you go on dates with married men? Naturally?
Argumentative. I'm going to also object under 611 for harassment.
All right. I'll sustain the objection.
And what did you make of her demeanor?
That she didn't care. The whole time she smirked at us and rolled her eyes and shook her head, just came off that she didn't really care about it.
In the next few weeks, a new jury would be picked for Lori Vallow Daybell's second trial in Arizona, her third trial in less than 3 years. In the latest case, Lori is accused of conspiring with her brother, Alex Cox, to kill her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreau.
911, where's your emergency?
Someone just shot my window.
This happened back in October 2019 in Gilbert, Arizona. Investigators believe Lori's brother, Alex Cox, shot at Brandon, who was driving home from the gym.
They just drove off. I saw him drive off.
The bullet struck his car, but missed his head.
Brandon is often overlooked in this the massive amount of evidence and wrong that was done by Chad and Lori and Alex at their behest. And I hope that he gets to have his day in court.
Again, Rachel Smith, a prosecutor in Lori Vallow Daybell's case in Idaho. She said Brandon testified in that case and that he was instrumental in helping police connect all the dots in all of these cases. Alex Cox couldn't be charged because he died in December 2019. In this case, police also submitted Lori's current husband, Chad Daybell, for charges. But the Maricopa County Attorney's Office declined to prosecute.
I really hope he gets to tell his truth to an Arizona jury and hold Lori accountable for her part in the conspiracy to have him killed.
The weeks leading up to this trial were filled with drama. Lori Vallow Daybell, who was representing herself again, would fight with the judge, and at one point filed to get the judge kicked off the case.
I have to ask that you would recuse yourself from the obvious personal bias that you have against me and send us to master calendar for this scheduling of a trial.
I don't have any personal bias.
A motion that was denied, and the drama didn't stop there. During jury selection, Lori Vallow Daybell appeared sick in court, coming in a wheelchair, claiming she was dragged out of her cell to be in the courtroom. She asked to delay jury selection and ultimately the trial.
You're welcome to come over to the jail and come to my cell and see how I'm doing in there.
All right, I'll take a pass on that.
The judge agreed to take a few days. In the next hearing, Vallow Daybell pushed to delay again, but the judge found there wasn't any objective reason that she couldn't be in court. In June 2025, after a delayed start.
How did the police figure out that this defendant and Alex Cox were involved? Well, when the police were interviewing Brandon, they asked him if he had any enemies. Who would want to do this? And Brandon told the police the only people he could think of was Lori Vallow and Alex Cox.
The jury was seated and opening statements were underway.
What motivation did I have? What malice have I ever shown to anyone? What benefit would I gain? I am a person who loves all people and has no malice towards anyone.
What made this trial unique was that Brandon Boudreaux took the stand, the only living victim in Lori Vallow Daybell's criminal cases.
They were meaning to kill me. There's no other logical explanation for why that would have happened.
That also meant Lori Vallow Daybell, acting as her own attorney, could cross-examine Brandon Boudreaux, making for uncomfortable moments in the courtroom.
So you and I have never had an argument in our lifetimes.
I wouldn't agree with that.
During this trial, Vallow Daybell kept asking questions or making comments that the judge cautioned her could open the door for the prosecution to bring in details of her prior convictions. Things boiled over during a discussion when the jury wasn't in the room.
If I open the door, do I get a hearing? We stop trial and I get a hearing on...
Stop. We'll have a very short hearing, okay? If you're going to introduce how you have great character and good character, we're going to have a short hearing on what evidence that they can bring in to rebut that character, which could include being convicted of 4 murders.
So and would you
talk
like...
to your advisory counsel during the break. And
you don't need to yell at me either. I'm at you, okay? Yeah, you are, and you do not need to talk to me that way. I'm very courteous. I'm very courteous to you.
No, you have been nothing near courteous to me during the course of these proceedings.
The judge temporarily kicked her out of the courtroom. The spectacle continued through the rest of the trial and into closing arguments.
So I'm not defensive. I'm not angry. Nobody has all the pieces to this puzzle. It is complex.
We don't need words. We have actions that are obvious, and they're done by this defendant and her co-conspirators.
In this case, it took the jury less than an hour to reach a verdict.
We, the jury, do find the defendant, Lori Daybell, guilty.
Coming up, what's next for Lori Vallow Daybell after her new convictions?
I did not enjoy sitting and giving someone who tried to kill me the chance to question me.
And Brandon Boudreaux breaks his silence.
We, the jury.
It's the final moments of Lori Vallow Daybell's third and final criminal trial. She'd already been convicted in Idaho for killing her kids Tylee and JJ, and for her role in the death of Tammy Daybell, her husband's first wife. In Arizona, she was convicted for conspiring to kill her former husband, Charles Vallow.
Guilty.
And just learned her fate in Trial 3, where she was convicted of conspiring to kill her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux. For years, Brandon tried to stay out of the spotlight, but on the day the jury found Lori Vallow Daybell guilty of trying to kill him, he had a message to share.
And I want you guys to know that we stand united.
Brandon flanked by his new wife and by Kay Woodcock and by Colby Ryan, Lori Vallow Daybell's oldest son.
I have heard the question asked, why hold this trial? She already has multiple life sentences. My response is simple. We owe it to those who are victimized and choose to follow the law to uphold justice on their behalf. So many victims never get this day. So I thank the judge and the jury who willingly put their lives on hold to complete this process. I did not enjoy sitting and giving someone who tried to kill me the chance to question me, but I owed it to Charles, to Tylee, to JJ, and to Tammy to speak because I could.
Throughout the trial, the prosecutor called Brandon Boudreau's ex-wife, Melanie Pulowski, a co-conspirator in the attempt to kill him. She's Lori and Alex's niece.
And it screams to you a conspiracy by this defendant, by Melanie Boudreau, by Alex Cox, and by Chad Daybell to kill Brandon Boudreau.
Melanie Pulowski has never been charged in any case, but the prosecutor said an investigation is still open, even after all these years. Pulowski's attorney said they had no comment about what was said during Lori's latest trial. As for where everything else stands, Chad Daybell is still on death row, although he intends to appeal his conviction in Idaho. In the wake of her murder, Tammy Daybell's family founded the Tammy Douglas Daybell Foundation, which supports literary programs in Idaho and Utah and helps provide books to children. In September 2024, the house and outbuildings on the property where Chad and Tammy used to live and where Tylee and JJ's bodies were found were destroyed. An Idaho nonprofit bought the property and vowed to turn it into a place of healing. The community continues to rally around Tylee, JJ, Charles, and Tammy, and those who loved them.
We got the bitch again!
Lori Vallow Daybell is set to be sentenced in her Arizona cases in late July. She filed for new trials in both of her Arizona cases, and she also filed an appeal of her conviction in Idaho. After she's sentenced in Arizona, she'll be extradited back to Idaho, where she will spend the rest of her life imprisoned at the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center, as Lori Vallow Daybell is locked away forever in infamy. Brandon Boudreau's wish.
I'll go back to anonymity, hopefully, and just live my life and be another person who tries to do the right thing.
You can watch all our coverage leading up to Lori Vallow Daybell's Arizona sentencing right now on 12+.
Thanks for watching this special report from the 12 News I team.